Frankie, I was expecting to come on here and discuss the Brentford match, and we shall do that. But it feels like this whole Kudus Lopetegui thing's taken over the last 24 hours. What's your reading of this, say, situation? I'm not even sure it is a situation. This news, if you like.
I think that's really important, not creating a situation if one doesn't exist. I think that's quite key. We don't want to blow it out of proportion without all of the facts. But regardless of whether it is a full-blown situation or whether it's just a difference of opinion or a difference in, I don't know, maybe Lopetegui's just knowing he's under a little bit of pressure and trying to do different things. So we mentioned it in the preview and we said it's going to be before we actually brought the subject up, we said it's going to be probably an unpopular topic and a controversial one. And then we said that actually we look quite balanced in the Liverpool game. And because of that, there may be a situation where Kudus might find himself on the bench. And we also said about Rodriguez and so on, and that Souček might be somebody who we need in the midfield. And the comments that we kind of got were, oh, what a ridiculous opinion. You've lost your mind. Who would ever think of having Souček on the pitch and Kudus on the bench? The manager would be doing suicide. Well, he went for his suicide mission in the second half against Brentford and things got better and it was an improved second half. So while it wasn't a case of that we ever wanted to see that, and I actually felt that Kudus had a positive first half. I felt like he was trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck at times. I don't see when he grabs the game by the scruff of the neck and tries to beat 4 or 5 players. I don't see that as him being selfish or greedy. I see that as him saying, I'm getting a bit frustrated here. We need to get up the pitch. I'm going to try and make it happen. And I've got the ability to do it. So I don't mind it. So I was a bit surprised when there was talk about Lopetegui maybe saying Kudus isn't a team player, because that's the only part where I feel like you could criticize him for not being a team player, because it looks as though he's trying to beat lots of players and whatever. But he looked like our biggest goal threat. And it was just something that was playing on my mind. And I felt like isolating him out on the left was as bad as benching him. It almost didn't make any difference whether he was on the left or on the bench, because he clearly don't want to be out there. Clearly doesn't want to play there. It doesn't suit him. So playing Somerville, who's a natural left winger and looks comfortable there and looks like he naturally plays there and looks like he knows how to, you know, play that role effectively. And for the past couple of games looked really good. You know, it was, well, at some point, I think Kudus is going to find himself out of favour out there. We then see a lot of people talking about a central role and so on. But this is what I had started doing a little bit of research, because there was a comment where someone said, I saw an interview of him saying before this season, not last season, this season, which there's a very difference in that he wanted to play as a right winger. But there was a lot of articles, and I mean a lot of articles. If you search for Kudus and where he wants to play, last season under Moyes, there was quite a lot of articles saying he wants to play in a more central role.
Yeah.
That's what Kudus said. So
yeah, I've never seen that one saying he wants to play on the right. I've seen comments from him saying the way Lopetegui uses his wingers is the way he likes to play as a winger. But I haven't seen the one you're referring to. But I know the one regarding Kudus saying he prefers.
But my question, Geo, on that,
the
question on that is, why has no manager ever given him at West Ham an opportunity to play that more central role for a prolonged period of time? That's what I can't quite understand.
I think under Lopetegui so far, I don't actually think we have like a number 10. Like the last couple of games, I don't feel like we've actually got like kind of central attacking midfielder. It feels more 4-3-3 to me rather than like a 4-2-3-1. And Paqueta's quite deep alongside Souček and Rodriguez, or just in front of both of them, in front of Rodriguez, if you like. So I think that role almost doesn't exist under Lopetegui thus far. Under Moyes, I think he was almost trying to get the best out of Lucas Paqueta to some extent, and he was the main focus. Because when Kudus rocked up, Paqueta had already been here and done it for a year. You know, it was almost like he was the main man. And I have no issues with that. I think I would have agreed with that opinion at the time. And I'm a big Kudus fan. I think Paqueta was worthy of being the main guy in the team. And in terms of central, listen, it's different though, isn't it? Playing for Ajax in the Dutch leagues a lot different than playing for West Ham in the Premier League. The whole nature of the game is completely different. I'd like to see him played centrally. But I just don't know we've got that role under Lopetegui at the minute. I just don't know if it exists.
I will counter that by saying a lot of people have said under Lopetegui so far that Souček is played in the 10 role.
I would say, even I've said that at times, I wouldn't say he's like there was one game in particular, I think it was Fulham away, I would say he was. But the other ones, he's more a central midfielder just getting forward. He's a number 8 that just gets up the pitch really quickly. Like against Aston Villa, when we were defending, he was back in a central midfield role defending, but when we were attacking, he was overtaking Paqueta and getting into the 18-yarder. And I think Lopetegui's just utilised the fact that he is incredibly athletic. He's not slow. He's not rapid, but he's not slow either. And he isn't very hard-working. He will get from box to box all day long if you ask him to. And I think we're utilising that as a way of getting someone in the box that isn't actually a number 10 as such. So that's how I've seen it. The last couple of games, especially, I don't think we've seen like a 4-2-3. I think it's been 4-3-3. In the second half against Brentford, I think that switched even more. And I thought it was more, I don't even know how to describe this formation. Sort of 3 centre-backs to some extent, a left wing-back, but no right wing-back, central midfielders, attacking midfielders, striker. It was a very fluid team against Brentford in the second half that I've seen. But I think Solar was maybe an advanced central midfielder, call him a number 10 if you want, but not in the first half against Brentford. I strongly don't think Souček or Paqueta was playing that role.
No, I would agree with that. I think there have been previous times where like Souček was literally our furthest forward player. So again, I don't know whether that is a cam role, is it 10 role, however you want to word it. But there's no question that at times he's been our most offensive player.
Yeah, I agree.
So look, there's a lot of questions that have got to be asked at the moment, but they're difficult ones. And I mean, this is another controversial point, but these are all discussions that I feel need to be had. And that's, you say that Bowen you think is our best player. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. Bowen needs to start in his best position, which is on the right. That's where every manager seems to want to play Kudus. And if he doesn't play on the right, Lopetegui decided to play him on the left, but no one, for whatever reason, manager-wise, will play him centrally. They don't believe that that's where he can be effective for West Ham, rightly or wrongly, who knows? I would argue that I think Kudus is our best player. I would say that Bowen isn't quite world-class. I would say he's a very good footballer, but I wouldn't quite say he's world-class. I would say Kudus has got the ability and the attributes to be world-class and potentially play for any club out there. And because of that, if he's not playing in the position as the preferred player where he's supposed to be playing, I think he's got a big enough ego that would suggest that he would find that quite difficult to deal with. I think he does believe in himself and his own ability. I think he does see himself as a world-class player. He probably does believe he could play for Liverpool, Man City, whatever team. Name a team that you think, could do with a right winger. And I think he would feel, and many people would feel, that he could go and play for that football club. So if he's seeing it as, well, I'm being put out of my position by Jarrod Bowen, you probably don't like it too much.
No, I mean, I agree with what you've said about Kudus. I think he's got the potential to go on and become world-class. But in terms of being best player, I think a lot of that depends on, maybe I should have worded it as most important player for West Ham then, because a lot of that is dictated by tactics and system and how you fit into it. If you were to go get, I don't know, there's players out there that look really good at the minute, but you took them to West Ham, put them in the way we play, I think they'd struggle. But vice versa, I think there's players that look really good at West Ham, such as Jarrod Bowen, but you'd put him in a different team, he may not perform as good because the tactics wouldn't suit him as much. And I think Bowen really benefits from us being a counter-attacking team. I think that's why he excelled under David Moyes. The way that Moyes played football meant you saw the best version of Jarrod Bowen. Now, that's why I've always suggested I think Moyes is the right manager for Bowen. We naturally will focus on the players that the managers aren't right for, and say, well, this manager's not getting the best out of this player and that player, which is understandable and a very fair thing to do. But I think sometimes we maybe miss the players that are actually succeeding under the manager. So while there's some that miss out and don't perform as well as they could, I think there's some players that perform really well and almost at the top of their game. And I'd put Bowen in that bracket. I'd put Declan Rice in that bracket. He's gone on to do really well at Arsenal as well. But I feel like Moyes was trying to squeeze every ounce of ability out of Declan Rice. And it was at the detriment of Thomas Souček and others as well. But I felt like you saw Declan Rice turn into, personally, I thought you saw Declan Rice turn into a world-class player under David Moyes because he just tried to squeeze everything out of him as a footballer. So there's always winners and losers in every team. And that's why I think sometimes when certain managers can get the best version out of all 11 players, they tend to be one of the best managers in the game. If you look at what Arteta's doing at Arsenal right now, there's one or two poor players in that starting 11, but I think that's only because of injuries. But generally speaking, you look at likes of Saka and Havertz, you look at the complete back four of whether you want Timber or Ben White at right back, Gabriel Saliba, Raya and goal, Calafiori now, Rice, Odegaard. It's hard not to look at that. He just gets the best out of 8 or 9 of these players in that starting 11. And I think this is where my frustration is at the minute, where how many players at the minute at West Ham can you say that about under Lopetegui? 3, 4, 5 if you're being generous, and I think you're really pushing it then. But I agree with what you're saying. I think Kudus could go on and become a better player, but at West Ham, I think Bowen is better for West Ham than what Kudus is.
For the record, I've just got to put in there that I'm not saying bench Jared Bowen because that's what be in the comments below after this video. I'm not saying.
I think I'd like to see Kudus in a central role, whether it's number 10 or as the number 9. It might work, it might not work. And if it doesn't, then he either goes back on the left, he goes up and plays back up to Jared Bowen, he competes with Jared Bowen for the right-hand spot, whatever. It's a difficult situation. It's one that I'm sort of half familiar with because when I did my stream on Sunday, there was another Scottish guy in the live chat. By the way, Andy Irving called up to the Scotland squad. Andy Irving's in the Scotland squad, but years ago, we played. Scotland had a difficult game. I think it was Serbia away. I could be wrong, but it was someone like Serbia, Georgia, someone like that. And it was a must-win for us. We had to win, and we failed. I think we drew. And Andy Robertson is our captain. And after the game, he got asked just about it, and he was pissed off. And he basically said, "Well, we've got a bit of a problem because we've got 2 world-class left-backs, and neither of us are playing left-back." And he was referring to himself and Kieran Tierney because Robertson was playing left wing back and Kieran Tierney was playing left centre back. And it was like, well, we're both really good in the same position. So what are you going to do about it? Now, Clark's managed to make it work, but we've got a little bit of that with Kudus and Bowen, really. 2 of our best players are possibly at their best in the same position. So what do? Someone's got to miss out or someone's got to make do. And at the minute, it's Kudus. And, it blew up in the last 24 hours, this argument between Kudus and Lopetegui, and I think it came off the back of Tony Gale, to be honest. During the second half, Tony Gale said Kudus has come out and he's kicked the seat and he's not spoken to the management. And then when ExWHUEmployee did his podcast over on the West Ham Way, and I'm a patron of theirs, so I can see the comments. There was people saying, "What do you know about this Kudus Lopetegui thing?" So he answered it and said, "Well, I think they might have had to disagree a bit and might have had to get pulled apart to some extent in the changing room, but it's all resolved now. It's all calm. There's not an issue." But because that came out, it got blown up and it's become the talking point. Personally, I'm not arsed about it at all. I think it only becomes a problem if it impacts future games. So if on Saturday Kudus is benched or gets taken off after 45 minutes again, or he's back on the left and gets subbed off, then I think it becomes a problem. But at the minute, I'm not too bothered by it. Disagreement in the changing room. It came out. I'm not even bothered about the leak per se, because it could be a player could have gone home and said to his missus, "Oh, there was an argument during the game between Kudus and the gaffer, and she's told something." It's Chinese whispers, and everything can get blown out of proportion that way before it hits the mainstream media. So maybe I'm being a bit naive, Frankie. I'm shrugging at it, going, "Not a big deal."
I don't think you are being naive. I think it's right. To be honest, Gio, if they all rocked up in that changing room at half time and we find ourselves behind in the game again and everyone just sat there
Giving each other a
silent and
cuddle.
didn't have anything to say, that would be more of a worry to me. So the fact that one of our better players is speaking out, you've got to do that in the right way. And maybe, you know, he needs to express himself in the right moments and have that word with a manager at a more suitable time and not during the you know, halfway through a match. But you know, we needed a shake up at half time, or otherwise we were going to find ourselves not getting anything out of that game. So I'm not all right. You know, they've had their spat, they've had their words, they've had their say. You know, now we get on and we try and put right the things that are not quite going right for West Ham at the moment. So, but it still doesn't answer the question. For whatever reason, even though Kudus says, I want to play centrally, and has done many times before, he never finds himself in that central role. And if he plays if he wants to play on the right, and that's the only place that Lopetegui feels like he wants to play him, and Bowen that is his best position. I think we've seen it, you know, over the last few games, that down the right is where Bowen has to play. Then I don't want to see Kudus on the left. So we go back.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
One. It means that he doesn't start. And that's not because of ability. It isn't because that's the opinion, whatever. And, you know, we've got some questions that we need to answer there. And for all Moyes' faults, he did keep a first 11 happy. And when you've got a squad full of players, which I would say we've probably got more of a bench and more of a squad that deserve first team football now, that is something that has to be managed. And Lopetegui as manager and with his coaching staff have to get that right. And they have to keep everyone happy. They have to keep the players that are not playing positive. They've got to keep them waiting for their moment and their opportunities. And what we don't want is people having spats and throwing their toys out their pram, because that ain't going to be no good for West Ham. So they've got a bit of work to do, Geo, the management team there. They've got to sort that out and get everyone pulling in the same direction and all wanting the same things for West Ham.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, isn't it? You're dealing with
it is a tough job.
People with big egos and big talents, and nobody likes
what they get paid millions for, Geo. So
you saw Paqueta,
but they've got to do it.
The funny thing is, I think what's interesting, if you like, is intriguing, maybe, is this whole Kudus and Lopetegui stuff came out. But if you look at the reaction of Paqueta when he got subbed, his was no better, possibly even worse. The way he was practically had a tantrum, he's stomping off and taking his wristbands off and looked really unhappy. But the problem is you're missing all the context. Is he unhappy with his own performance? Is he unhappy with the fact he's been subbed? Is he unhappy with the way West Ham have been playing? And he's not, you know, you don't know. All you can see is his body language, which I think is fair to say. He didn't look too pleased when he was walking off the pitch. No. But there's no mention of that. It's purely just the Kudus Lopetegui thing. And I'm not arsed at all. I think I'd imagine football today, that is seen as a big deal, because I think football's changed so much that it is a big deal now. I mean, you look at tackles these days, if it's remotely crunchy, it's like, whoa, booking, yellow, even if you win the ball. You can hear commentators now, player gets a yellow card for tackle and they say, oh, it was a bit hard or it was a bit over the top, and as in toughness, aggression, rather than foot over the ball, a bit over the top. That never used to be a thing. There almost wasn't a thing as too aggressive a tackle. If you won the ball, that was it. But I think because football's changed so much, and imagine if this was in the 90s, and imagine Fergie, if this story come out, and the Man U team under Fergie, they probably pissed themselves laughing and going, really? Is this news? This is a big deal. He used to throw their plate of sandwiches at us on a regular basis. Cups of tea were lobbed at each other and whatever. You know, it used to be common back then for objects to get thrown at each other in the changing room. Now, two blokes have a square off in the changing room is deemed a big deal. It's nothing. I just think, no, I'm not. It wasn't that long ago. James Collins and Michael Antonio was hitting each other because one of them was late to a meeting, and it was like, I'm going to sort you out, and I'm going to sort you out. Come on, then let's have a blow. It's personally not a big deal. I'm not arsed in the slightest. But what is a big deal, I think, is playing Ipswich on Saturday.
Yeah, we are, and we said if we don't get a a result at Brentford, it puts pressure on. I think it has put pressure on. I think it's a win-only outcome that we need.
Do you know something, right? Do you know this Kudus Lopetegui thing? I actually think it's helped a little bit because we're all talking about that instead of the Ipswich game.
Yeah, no, and absolutely.
I think sometimes it's what Mourinho used to do, isn't it? Mourinho was very good at creating a distraction.
Yeah.
Chelsea would get beat. His team didn't play well, so he would talk about something completely different, and the media would jump on that. But what the media would completely forget is the fact that Chelsea just got beaten. Someone had a stinky performance that wasn't spoken. That was going to be spoken about, but Mourinho would do something just to divert their attention. So actually, I think all the attention on the Kudus Lopetegui thing stops him fielding questions. Do you feel you might get sacked? Well, what about Kudus? Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a nothing story. Move on. Big game though. I think the Brentford game, I'm still adamant that this is true. It is simply kicking the can down the road. I have not seen anyone that was Lopetegui out is now Lopetegui unsure, and I'm not seeing anybody that was Lopetegui unsure going to the Lopetegui out based on that draw against Brentford. Everybody's just remained the same, I think, in terms of opinion. Someone's altered a little bit. Has to get a win though. I do think he has to get a win, and I don't think a lot of people would have watched Ipswich's game against Aston Villa on Sunday, and I don't think that's helped for fans' confidence going into this one.
No, it hasn't helped. They had a good result. Obviously, we spoke about Liam Delap before. I obviously am quite fond of him from his time in the Premier League too, and when he was breaking every record going, and he was, I tipped him to be a serious player in the future. So he's had a bit of a up and down career since then, found himself on loan at Hull and Preston and not really doing it. And now he seems quite settled, and it's probably what we didn't want him to find his goal scoring boots before this game. But, that will give him bags of confidence and be good for him. It would have given Ipswich a lot of confidence. We know how much we struggled against Aston Villa at our place at the first game of the season. So that was a tough day, and they've managed to get a point out of them. So after being behind as well, it's, they've done really well. So yeah, I mean, they look like a decent side. But I think it's very different playing at home for a side like theirs to playing away from home. I don't want to give them too much credit for that Aston Villa performance. It's a big occasion for them. You always have this Premier League bubble. You're at home. You're feeling comfortable, So I still expect us to do a job on them. And I don't just want to see us scrape a win. I want to see us go out full of confidence and basically what we said after that international break before, we needed to get our season kick-started. Well, we haven't seen any season kick-started so far. So this is, if you wanted a game, as we said before, yeah, okay, pressure. It's sort of one of them ones where we're all expecting a result, which is a dangerous thing. But if you could actually pick a fixture to allow us to put to bed this sort of stories that are going on at the moment, and for us to build a bit of confidence and go on and get a good result, this is the fixture that you'd probably pick. So, yeah, full of expectation. And I want to see us to start positive. What I don't want to see, Joe, which we haven't touched too much on the Brentford game, I don't want to see a rinse and repeat first half lineup with drastic major changes and lots of weird things happen in the second half to try and get a result. That I don't want to see. I want to see a very, very positive starting lineup, starting as we mean to go on with nothing to put right in the second half. I want us to start fast like Brentford did, come out, make a statement, and not have to do these weird things that we seem to be having to resort to in the second half at the moment.
Yeah, I was just checking the Ipswich results. I was thinking, I'm sure they've done all right away from home this season. They got smashed by Man City, but then they got a draw 0-0 away to Brighton, and then they drew against Southampton, which was a last-minute equaliser from Morrissey, scored a last-minute goal. But so the last 4 games, they've got 4 points, drawn against Aston Villa, Southampton, Brighton, and Fulham. They drew at home to Fulham as well. So they're in a not bad patch of form, actually, rocking up at our place. And I think this is where a draw's enough for them, really. They can pick up draws away from home and win a couple at home in the meantime. They'll be all right. I think all they have to do is try and get to that magic I say magic 40, it's maybe magic 38 now or something, 37, 38 points tends to keep you up these days, but magic 40, I don't think it'll be far off it either way. I think they'll just do it or just miss out one way or another. So it's going to be a tough game. There's a lot of sort of rogue West Ham connections here. We've also got Ben Johnson coming back, but he's not been playing. Twanzebe's been preferred to him at right back. We've got Jacob Greaves, who we're heavily linked to in the summer, who I really wanted at West Ham, but Ipswich went in for him. Calvin Phillips will be playing, so he's coming back to the London Stadium in central midfield. Then they've got a West Ham fan who might not start, but might start and scored against us in the Carabao Cup at Blackburn Rovers, and Sammy Smodix, he'll be playing, and he's a big West Ham fan as well. So there's quite a few West Ham connections in this Ipswich Stadium. Maybe one or two that I completely forgot. We were obviously linked to Jack Clark as well. Ipswich got him from Sunderland. We were heavily linked to him back in the January transfer window. So there's quite a few loose connections in. Like I said, the big one in Ben Johnson. So anyway, should we leave it there? Anything else you want to add? How are you feeling for Saturday, by the way? Can I get a score prediction from you, Frankie?
Yeah, I'm all right. We're going to kickstart the season, like I said. We're going to win 3-0, Geo. We're going to go.
Bloody hell.
We're going to take them to the cleaners. Kudus is going to get 2.
And where's he playing? Is he in the middle or on the left?
I think he's going to play on the right.
Yeah, and Bowen up front, or a Bowen dropped, or...
No, I've heard some people say that they liked Antonio's performance at Brentford. While I feel like he put himself around a little bit more, one thing that frustrated the away fans quite a bit was when he was walking around with his hands on his hips. And my 6-year-old, if he puts his hands on his hips on a football pitch, I scream at him. He's not allowed to do it. So a player who's getting paid millions of pounds a year, whether you're tired, whether you've just gone on, run the full length of the pitch, don't stand there with your hands on your hips, mate. It's not a good look. Terrible body language. It's just not what I want to see. So it frustrated a lot of people. And I still don't think he was particularly good. I just feel like Somerville deserves to be on the left. If you're playing Somerville on the left, then I think our only option at the moment is to play Kudus on the right and Bowen down the middle. So Kudus is going to get 2. Bowen's going to get the other 1. And it's going to be a 3-0 win. Happy days. I just wanted to give, mate, because there's been a lot of talk about this as well. We've all dug him out and we know his limitations. And I think Gonzo said that he doesn't get hate. He does get hate. And Souček even come out and said that he could hear some of what was going down. And for him to basically put in a performance like he did against Brentford just shows you everything you need to know about Thomas Souček. He still gives everything for West Ham when he's on that football pitch. We know his passing's limited. We know his footballing ability isn't the greatest, but we still can't question how much he gives to West Ham. He gives everything. And we've had plenty of players over the years who we've given the benefit of the doubt to with their ability because they give everything and they give their all for our football club. And we've always backed them. And it was brilliant to see that after his goal, everyone singing Super Thomas Souček. And at the end, he walked over. We got into some really bad habits under David Moyes, really bad habits where the players were extremely distant from the fans, whether it be at the player awards, whether it be at home and clapping the team fans afterwards. We stopped giving shirts to the crowd. Some really awful distancing between players and fans. Souček come over. Everyone sung his name at the end of that match. Everyone cheered him. He took his shirt off. He came running over to the fans. He gave his shirt away, which prompted other players to come and engage with the fans and give their shirts over as well. And it was almost like a moment of a wall being broken down. And it was brilliant to see. I loved it. I don't want to see that divide anymore. I don't want to see fans clapping us from the centre circle. I want to see us coming over and embracing the fans, and let's all be a bit more together. And it was really, really good to see. So if we're taking a bit of a positive away at the moment and ending on something that was really good and, you know, something that I just felt was really nice, that was a really good moment. And yeah, it instilled a bit of faith in me, Geo, that we've still got something to do this season, and not all's lost yet.
Well, I love that. I love that feeling. I think it's applicable for Antonio as well. Souček, what you just said there about players that get them all. Personally, I think Antonio gives his all. I think he's blown out his arse and should have been sub 10 minutes earlier on Saturday. But I do feel like he...
And do you know what? I've probably overlooked that a little bit, that his hands on his hips may have been a signal to the manager to say, you're not taking me off, but
you don't even need a signal. Antonio on a podcast at the start of the season said, after an hour, I'm done. He said, I can't keep going anymore. I'm getting old. I can't do 90 minutes. And he's not wrong. So I think when a player, when it's obvious to everybody that a player's shattered, that's where I think it becomes, it's on the manager really to notice it and to take him off rather than to leave him on. And I feel like when Antonio tires, we struggle a bit as a team because that outlet's gone, that guy running after every loose ball, that aggression that he has, and he just makes life difficult for defenders. He's not the best player in the world, but he can make life really hard for a centre back. And I think when he's tired, he doesn't do that. And it's I don't blame him. I blame the lack of substitution. I think that sub on Saturday could have been done about 10 minutes earlier, where I just feel like Antonio's involvement drops off like a cliff sometimes, where it's like he's involved and suddenly it's just he's got nothing left in the tank and boom, that's it. But I think it's funny, isn't it? You know, you go from Moyes to Lopetegui and it's the same players involved and the same players giving everything for the football club and the shirt and stuff like that. So there is a lot of similarities, I guess. But yeah, I think Souček, I've seen the comments you're referring to because it was when it was just the media in Czechia, it was them that asked him. It wasn't an English-based journalist. It was a Czech-based journalist said to him something along the lines of, you're getting a lot of hate from West Ham fans about your performances or something. He said, no, the fans love me and I love this club. I love the fans or whatever. So it was a good answer by Souček, but it's hard. And listen, it's not like I've never criticised. I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't. I have criticised Souček. And you know what? I probably will in future because I just discuss the game, how I see it. And he's not going to be man of match every game. So there will be games where I think he's not done good enough here. But it doesn't mean it's not hard to read. It doesn't make you feel bad because it does. It makes me feel guilty. When I read that, I thought, fuck, maybe I have been a bit harsh on him. Maybe I've been harsh on every West Ham player. I don't know. But he's a lovable giant, isn't he, Thomas Souček? Anyway, I don't think we'll win 3-0. But I'll be giving my prediction when I do my match preview with Gonzo a bit later on in the week. But Frankie, thank you very much for joining me. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you next week. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating you being correct. And Kudus has banged in a couple and Bowen's got another one. It's 3-0 and we're all damning the international break because West Ham finally clicked into form and now the international break's here. Enjoy yourself, Frankie, and I'll catch up with you next week.